Hello and welcome to Game and Chats. I am your host Mike, and in today's video I am talking with Pete Beckett of Rapid Reviews Radio Podcast
Leo.
and Richard Stokesy of We Love Video Game Music. And today we are commemorating the 10th anniversary of Satoru Iwata's passing. Hence why I've got these fine individuals to join me for this episode, as we're going to be talking about his exploit and obviously the book Ask Iwata. So, guys, please introduce yourselves, starting with Pete.
Hello, I'm Pete. I'm from the Rapid Reviews Radio Podcast. I've been a frequent contributor on the Mike Tendo 64 channel at this point, so if you don't know me, then where have you been? But I am a Nintendo fan, have been most of my life, and probably the most interesting period of Nintendo's lifespan, I would say, is when Satoru Iwata was the CEO, but also with being a very frequent contributor of them via HAL Labs as well, so big fan of their games and a big fan of his contribution to the video game industry.
Mm-hmm. And Rich?
Similar here, I'm Rich. I run a social media campaign called We Love Game Music, where we promote everything and anything to do with soundtracks of video games. But I'm also a massive Nintendo fan. I've been a co-manager of a Nintendo community, one of the Nintendo players groups, pretty much for the last 10 years or so. And yeah, I've just been a massive Nintendo fan all my life, and that's it, really.
So, as you can see, I've got a very, very good panel here today. And we're going to be sharing some of our favourite memories of Satoru Iwata and the things that he has done for the gaming industry and for gaming communities as well, and just being an all-around general good guy. I mean, it says something when, like, 10 years after his passing, it's been a decade now, and even to this day, there's not been a single person that's come forward with a bad word to say about him. Like, with so many other people, like when they've left the company and then someone says, oh, they did this to me or they fired me, for, out of all the reasons and stuff like that. But you don't hear any of that from Iwata.
No, it was interesting the other day on the anniversary, which was the 11th of July. Reggie Fils-Aimé put on Twitter that he said, I can't believe it's been 10 years already. He's no longer with Nintendo anymore. So, I mean, he was a good friend of his anyway. And he said, there isn't a day that goes past that I don't think about him. And I think that's a testament to the man that he was. Yeah. So he was very memorable, a very interesting character, and someone of good heart and good mind and good spirit.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, unlike many sort of nameless executives you see in gaming today, he was completely the opposite of them. He always thought about others first before he thought anything about himself, and he was just an all-round good guy.
Yeah, it's interesting to note as well that he was the first president outside of Nintendo that wasn't part of the main family, which I for the life of me cannot remember the name of the family name.
I think it's Yamauchi, isn't it?
Something like that. I'll find it. I just read it earlier today, actually. So I think I'll find
it wasn't it the Yamauchi family? I think.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. It rings a bell now.
Yes, I believe it is. Yes.
Yeah, in that entire storied history of Nintendo, he's the first person to be an outside executive who'd run the company. And let's be honest, Nintendo had gone through many a troubling time during the late 90s and early 2000s as well, when he stepped into the role. So, and it was probably under auspicious circumstances that he did actually come into the role, didn't he? Because it wasn't it a passing in the family that meant that he stepped in?
I believe so, yes. But let's face it, Iwata is no stranger to adversity, because obviously when he was working at HAL, he started off part-time at HAL Laboratory, or HAL Laboratory, however anybody likes to...
We'll just call it HAL Labs for short.
Yeah, HAL Labs, yeah, we're going to go with HAL Labs. And it's like, it was there for the company part-time, and then he became president at one of its worst ever moments of being like 1.5 billion in debt.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow managing to turn it around. And the things that he would do, he would interview members of the company to, get their insights, to hear their thoughts and everything, so that he could get, like everybody on board as a collective. And that's just something you don't
Yeah.
see from, top managerial positions.
Yeah.
It's all about what can I do to suit the board, whereas in this case, it was what can I do to serve the people of the company.
Yeah, which is prevalent because I've got the page open for this and the particular part of the book where it says interviewing every employee twice a year, which is something you don't hear of at all. It said when the company was in trouble, everything is an emergency. The thought on everybody's minds is if we don't finish this thing in a week, we're toast. However, once you declare bankruptcy, you're able to slow down and take your time, allowing you to do the things that you couldn't do before. For me, the thing that I couldn't do before was meeting every single employee and talking to each person one-on-one. Once I did that, I made so many discoveries and realised that this should have been the top priority all along. And that's just a small excerpt of it, obviously. There's a whole section about it, and I thought it was absolutely captivating that he spent the time to go and talk to all these employees. And I don't remember how many they had at Howl Labs, probably 70 or 80 or something at the time. And just...
Yep.
There was having to spend all that time, and he said that it ranged from small conversations for about 20 minutes to 3-hour conversations with some people as well, and he got a real perspective on what people's actual opinion of the company was, rather than just thinking he knew best. And I thought that was so refreshing to read.
It is because you think about it and it's like, getting everybody else's perspective on things, because sometimes if we see things, through our own eyes and we think, okay, it can only be done this way. And then someone that turns up to you and says, you know what, how about trying it this way? And then you look at it and you think, hang on, that actually works. So, you become more perceptive and more aware and taking on other people's opinions. And especially like when he says in that particular part of the book, and it's like, I also learned to, not interrupt people while they were talking, just listen to them, hear them out. And then afterwards, they'll be a bit more, receptive in hearing what I have to say, rather than, like interjecting at every moment and say, well, what about trying doing this? What about trying to do this? And it's like, you're not really listening to me at all. But he was not like that. He would listen to every word that somebody said to get a bigger picture of the problem and then like come up with a solution from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like when Nintendo were going through their big issues, like after the failure of the Wii U, and let's just say that the not so great launch of the 3DS. I think they would be the first to admit that the launch of the 3DS was not profitable at all for them, where he significantly cut his salary and the executives, his salary in half to make sure that he didn't have to go through redundancies and work losses. And yeah, okay, it's, I wouldn't say revisionist history now, but it is decreed by Japanese law that you have to do everything possible to ensure that the workforce is stayed, rather than just kicking them, booting them out, to ensure that the executives keep their salaries. Take note, Bobby Kotick, that's how you do it. But it still doesn't matter, because he saw the human side of what job losses would have to people. Obviously, they've got mortgages to pay, they've got kids to feed, or wives and families to look after, and all that. So I think that's the most shining example of what he was as a person, was that he was a human. He was a human being at heart, and a businessman afterwards. But obviously, his most famous quote, I'm sure we'll probably end with later.
Yes. I mean, you can say it now if you want, because I think it's like at the beginning of the book as well. So it's
on the back cover. So,
on the back as well,
on my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer, but in my heart, I am a gamer. So,
it's on one of the early inside pages as well.
Yeah.
But it just like resonates with me, and like, okay, so people can say, oh, but it was, indicted by Japanese law that he has to do that. And he says, and then you think, but he did it anyway, because he thought of the people of the company. He never ever thought about the bottom line of the company. He always put the people first, the workers, the employees, of all levels, not just so the higher development teams or whatever, the managerial, no, up to the one who's working on code for the credits and stuff like that for a game. So it was just or the guy who pushes the mail along around in the office room. He had time for everybody. Like we've already said, like interviewing people twice a year. And it's like, some conversations, 20 minutes, other conversations will be 3 hours. And he would take that time. Now, time is golden, especially if you're, running a business and you got to think, time is money, time is gold. And he would use that time. And he did not consider that a waste. He considered that the most valuable experience because it would help the decision making with pushing the company forward. And I think that's how he managed to, navigate the good shit Nintendo through those rough times, as well as HAL Labs through its roughest, years. And, they're still around today. And it's largely, thanks to, his insight and his character.
His sort of philosophy on life, and the fact that he, as you say, he made time for everyone, and he considered each person in that company as a sort of, I guess you could say whether you were a senior in the company or a junior, you were still important regardless of what your position was. And he always made sure that all his employees were happy, and keeping them happy also meant they stayed on at the company as well. So, so for him, it's like it was a win-win situation for him.
Yeah, considering that HAL Labs were going through their problems, Nintendo had gone through their problems as well. They could have very easily have come away from it either being bankrupt, non-existent, but yet both companies are still around and both are absolutely thriving. Obviously, HAL Labs it's not necessarily owned by Nintendo, but you would very much associate them as a Nintendo developer at this point.
Yes.
And it's obviously like how Iwata met very important people that in Nintendo's history, such as Shigeru Miyamoto and Masahiro Sakurai as well. And I think that if you want a little bit of extracurricular activity for this, go and watch the video that Sakurai did on Iwata, and some of the conversations that they used to have as well. And I think that one of the best stories was obviously when they announced Super Smash Bros. Brawl coming to Wii, and Sakurai had absolutely no clue it was even happening. And then he gets a phone call from him a day later, goes, I want you to do this. But obviously Sakurai's not even part of Nintendo anymore. He'd gone off to go and create Sora Inc. And he was like, well, you've got this contract. It's your game, basically. Like, there is no one else that we're leading with this. And that's been a staple of the Smash Brothers series since Brawl, is that Sora Inc. have been heavily involved within the development of the game, even to the point that Sakurai has pretty much put himself in hospital just to make the game. But Iwata's legacy is forever entrenched within the Smash Brothers series as being a coder on the original Smash 64. Like, it was them two that basically created the concept of the game, like whilst they were working at HAL Labs together, which is astonishing. And the fact that Iwata would used to come in even as company president during the GameCube days, where Smash Bros. Melee was going to be delayed, and he goes in on the weekends and in the evenings and carries on coding the game. It's ridiculous. I mean, the game is a mess, but that's the game has stood as like one of the pinnacles of competitive fighting games for that many years. Like, it's an astonishing.
I mean,
like,
even now, I mean, even after like Brawl and the Wii U and Smash Ultimate. I mean, if you think like really, really high-end competitive games, everyone always says Melee. Yeah, the others are fun, but Melee. It's Melee.
Yep, they're even doing it at the moment where they're like, "Oh, the GameCube's like emulations now come out. When are we getting Melee for it?"
Well, it's rumored that the Smash Bros. 64 is supposed to be coming to N64.
Apparently so,
maybe once that comes out, we'll probably get. Maybe they'll eventually free Melee.
Maybe so. It might be nice to get an actual decent-ish netcode for it.
Yeah, true.
So they'll probably release the N64 version first, give it a little while, and I reckon maybe we'll see Melee in the next year or so, maybe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they do a double drop, basically, because obviously
Yeah,
the
I guess they could.
N64 one's available for the Switch, and GameCube is only available for Switch 2.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah, that's fair. And for those that said who really want to play Melee again on a new system, they're going to go. It's going to give them another incentive to buy the Switch 2 as well. So
Yeah,
if they haven't got it already,
especially if it's going to make
True.
tournaments. If the emulation's decent, it'll make Melee tournaments a lot more accessible. Let's say,
yeah,
rather than lugging around CRT TVs.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee as soon as Melee comes up on Switch Online, the Nintendo communities will be using it for tournaments pretty much every meeting up. So
yeah, but you know there's going to be a couple of Melee players that are going to go into it. It was like, no, there's like 2 frames of like input delay here. Like, I can't play it. It's impossible.
Yeah, you're never going to please everyone, are you?
No.
So
no. But then again, if you're like at big competitions and stuff like that, you could probably play 4-player on a single Switch 2 console anyway, so you wouldn't have to deal with like wireless lag or LAN, lag and stuff like that. But anyway, I mean, Iwata, he is a businessman, he is a programmer, and he's done a lot of. He introduced us to the Nintendo Directs. As well, and then he'd do all those like skits and things and made them fun, and you got to see this lighter side. So you think, he's the president of Nintendo, he's got to be a very, very serious person and very, very business focused, and then you'll see him like staring longingly into a banana and having these like epic fights with Reggie Fils-Aimé to promote Smash Bros and stuff like that. It's just like almost like out of character, but it shows a brighter side that the company is about fun.
and the puppets as well.
Oh, thank God you mentioned the puppets.
The Jim Henson. The fact they actually went to Jim Henson Company and said, "We want to do this," and they were like, "Yeah, crack on."
Yeah.
So it just so, as you say, unlike most Western gaming executives, he took things seriously when they needed to be taken seriously. But when you but especially up to a game launch when you need to see a bit more of a fun side of things, he could bring that to fans as well. So
we all remember the absolute like joke that it was for an E3 when they did Wii Music, and my God.
that was a thing.
Yeah, it was definitely a thing. And it's also a shame that the puppets for Star Fox Zero was the best thing about that game.
Yeah.
I said it.
Yeah.
They put a lot of heart and effort into it. Let's just not. No.
Yeah, the third remake of the original Star Fox game.
So Rich, you got the book there. Do you mind giving us a little bit of read of one of your favourite parts of the book?
Well, I mean, as I say, guys, if I'm being honest, I've been just so busy recently. I've only literally been skipping through bits this morning. But one thing where you were saying about how he sort of wanted to make him sort of employees happy, it takes me back to a bit in the book I'm looking at now. So essentially, how he got started at How Labs, and the fact it was just he was wanting to create programs and games on computers. He was sending them off to various different companies. I mean, it looks like he was sending one off to like Hewlett Packard, who are best known for doing prints and things. Sending one off to them. Just they were thinking, who the hell is this guy? What's he up to, sort of thing. And I think he was just that interested in making programs and also making them for fun rather than just being serious ones, and just wanting to sort of find people who sort of shared his interests. And it was all that he went to his visited his local computer store and just got talking to other people who would hang around there at weekends coding games, because back then, even like what we consider the most basic computers today, the Commodores, etc., were expensive still. So people would go to stores and meet other people who shared their interests, and they would either code games individually there or do things together. And that is how HAL Laboratory formed, because the guy who formed HAL was essentially the owner of that computer store.
Yeah.
And so, like, all the original HAL employees were the store employees. As like as I was saying, he was on part-time initially while he was doing his university degree, and as soon as that was done, he was in the company full time. And it was sort of right at the time where they were leading up to the launch of the Famicom, or what we know over here as the NES.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah, it's just the fact that already in his early days, you could see him wanting to please others rather than just necessarily doing it for himself or doing it to make money.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's also very interesting to see that how much of a cultural difference it was back in the 80s in Japan, where you would go to computer stores to meet other people, whereas games developed over here in the UK during the video game crash in the US were mostly solitary individual things. You know, Manic Miner was created by one person, and other games were created by like the Stamper Brothers, or
Yeah.
what's the name of the people who did Dizzy? Why am I forgetting?
Oh,
Oh, the
I
Oliver
can't remember the
Twins.
name. Oh, that's it.
Yeah,
Oliver
yeah.
Twins. Yeah.
So so they were like two people operations or one person operations, whereas HAL Laboratories came about because, like you said, going to a computer shop and pretty much picking up 10, 20 employees for a new startup venture. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like
Yeah.
the indie game scene now is very much of the same ilk. You look at games like Undertale, like Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
Even like No Man's Sky was created by a small team of about 6, 8 people, I think it was.
Initially it
It
was,
was
but Hello Games obviously expanded as a result of like
yeah,
somewhat its quote success, let's say, because it didn't start out
yeah,
that way.
no,
But
I
yeah,
but
suppose in
Undertale
this
was
day and age as well, we've got more resources, or there's more resources for like game development. So like you've got your Unreal Engine, you've got Game Maker,
yeah,
and you've got all these other like engines that people can use. Whereas back in the day, they had to basically create their own programs in order to,
yeah,
you know, make games as well. So,
yeah,
hats off to people. I mean, obviously, you look at it now and it's like, oh, that was very, very rudimentary for its time. And it's like, yeah, but they didn't.
yeah. But
That
as I
was
said,
the
back then,
resources they had. They had to create that character from scratch. They had to create that model and how the pieces and everything move on that that character model. Whereas now it's basically that's a template. Put a skin on it. That's your new character now.
yeah, and you have to look at
I'm not
things
saying
from an
it's
aspect.
all like that,
Yeah,
but because you have these resources like source like filmmaker and stuff like that, where they can just use character models and create videos instantly, or like I know there's another engine that I'm completely missing. I know there's Unreal Engine 5, and I'm pretty sure
Unity.
there's another one there. Unity, that's it. That people can use, and it's like, okay, well, here's like your general environments. So, now you can build them up to how you want to perceive them. But,
Yeah, it's also a very interesting concept that even back in the day, like music was one of those things that you would record
yeah.
elsewhere and then have to basically de-evolve it to be able to fit on a cartridge.
Yes.
Full guitar sounds would then sound very mechanical, let's say, but then
Mm,
you have soundtracks that are just absolutely timeless, even from the 8-bit and 16-bit era, even though they're not.
yeah,
chip
People would
tunes.
consider them as bleeps and bloops, let's say, which is a very
Yeah.
weird
yeah,
expression, I think.
yeah.
The
I
weird thing
hear
is that we grew up with that.
The weird thing
exactly.
is
And we've
now,
seen
like,
it
modern
evolve.
dance music basically uses that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, probably a lot of a lot of DJs and stuff today would have initially learned through playing like like sort of DJ based games you had on certain consoles.
yeah,
So
yeah. I think we've gone slightly off
Why?
topic there, but that's a very
yeah, just
interesting point
We
of
have, haven't
discussion.
we?
But
But
still,
it all comes back. It all comes back
it
because, like,
does.
I mean, with what Iwata has done for like Nintendo and for HAL Labs, and where people started off with these small, very very humble beginnings. It's like passion projects, and that people continue to do that. Smaller development teams, with passion projects. It's like I really want my game to go, and obviously there's more resources now with the likes of like Kickstarter and other like GoFundMe and that kind of stuff. Whereas back in the day, it was really, word of mouth. Hey, we got this game. Can you try it, please? And then, yeah, okay, we'll, publish that or no. But anyway, so Pete, you've read through the book as well. You gave it a bit of a skim through. What are some of your favourite,
So,
quotes,
so this
stories?
comes from the chapter that's called "The Games Iwata Strives to Make," and
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the final sections of it where you've always got the Iwata's words of wisdom. So this is part 5. I thought this is prevalent because obviously what's happening in the video game industry at the moment, and I'll get to that, and it will become very apparent why I'm mentioning it. After a piece of hardware is released, the price is gradually reduced for 5 years until demand has run its course. But since the demand cycle never fails, why bother reducing the price this way? My personal take on the situation is that if you lower the price over time, the manufacturer is conditioning the customer to wait for a better deal, something I've always thought to be a strange approach. Of course, this doesn't mean that I'm against lowering prices entirely, but I've always wanted to avoid a situation where the first people to step up and support us feel punished for paying top dollar, grumbling, I guess this is the price I pay for the first in line. Which is quite prevalent at the moment when you've got console makers such as Xbox and PlayStation, and even to a certain point now, Nintendo raising the price of the Switch in Canada. That actually it
Mm.
does feel like that those who got in at the original price are being punished, but now the consumer are being punished even further by even
Mm.
waiting longer. But actually, like, it's still, I wouldn't. Whilst I like this quote, I don't necessarily agree with him, and I think that's a good thing to sort of state, is that you don't necessarily agree with everything that everyone says at every given moment.
Of
That
course not.
in
Of
most
course not.
occasions, the reason for price decreases is because technology becomes a lot older, easier to
Mm.
manufacture, and a cost leader, or
More affordable. Yeah.
more affordable in that respect. So the NES obviously started out its life as, a near, I think it was about a near £200 system over here, wasn't it? But then over
Mm.
time it became, 150, 120, 100. Then as the SNES was coming out, that's when they dropped the prices down. I mean, notoriously, like, the Wii never really had a drop down in price, and that was when he was at the helm until the Wii Mini came out, and that was a completely stripped down version of the Wii that didn't have backwards compatibility, no GameCube controllers, no internet access or anything. But yeah, it was still an
Mm.
affordable way to play the Wii.
Yeah.
And the
It
multiple
still gives
revisions you
people
had of,
access to the newer games on the Wii and obviously, the back catalogue of Wii games,
yeah,
but not necessarily without the GameCube. And it's like, well, if you want a more affordable option, I suppose this is kind of like with like when Xbox did with the Xbox S and was
yeah,
it
the Series S and
S and
Series
X, isn't
X,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the one's got the hard drive, the other is like digital only. It's like, okay, so
hmm
the one that's digital only is, a bit more affordable, but if you want to have all the gubbins and all, the bells and whistles, you've got to go with the other one, haven't you?
Yeah,
So
I mean, notoriously, Nintendo have done this sort of pricing model for quite a few of their releases as well, with the fact that
mm,
you have the DS come out originally, but then you've got the DSi, the DS Lite, the God no DS XL, and all that. Then the 3DS does the same thing. The Switch
yeah,
had various different models, including the OLED and the Lite.
Switch Lite.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's just appealing to very different niches of the market, basically.
Mm.
Mm.
The one that I forget the most and forget to mention, the 2DS. For those who
Oh
weren't
yes.
able to play the 3D function like myself, but didn't want to pay the extra
Mm.
money to have it to not use it.
Mm.
So
I must say that I am more of a fan of the 2DS XL rather than the 2DS, but it was a more affordable system. I think it came out at like 89.99 or something like that. It was
yeah,
not very expensive
no,
at
the
all.
original
The original.
2DS didn't feel like an actual piece of technology. It just felt like a plaything. And then the 2DS XL came
Price
out, and it
point.
was just it. I think it was a game changer, let's say. And then they obviously did the
Mm.
same thing with the 3DS XL, and it was that's what I've got in my cupboard at the moment is the 3DS XL, and I think it's a brilliant system.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
that's the same mind. So like when I got my 3DS, as soon as the 3DS XL came out, there was so many more benefits to having that yeah, I did the system transfer everything over from the original to the XL, and I haven't touched the XL since. It's just sat in the box.
Yeah,
So, within saying that, I haven't really touched my 3DS XL for
no,
for quite a while either, apart from taking it to conventions for street. Because you still get the old street pass every now and then. Otherwise, I was here. Would just stay in my bag the whole time, and just not get used.
Speaking of which, I did see something out in the wild the other day. It was a very strange situation where, do you remember newspapers?
Yeah.
Someone was actually in a
Yeah,
local shop of
I know
mine.
some of them are still about, but
Yeah.
I'm guessing you don't mean the tabloids. You mean like the local.
No, I meant like
newspapers.
the nationals. Like, doesn't matter which
Okay.
newspaper it was. I was in a shop, and I won't say the shop because it'll give. Right, let's just say it's a major supermarket chain.
Right.
And I went into the shop, and I'm just coming
Does
out.
every little help?
No, it doesn't actually.
Okay, then, right.
It's something
Not that
about
short, no.
something about a nectar. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Gosh.
So, was walking out of the shop, and as you go past, you see that the paper stand is there, and I'm like, papers still exist. That's weird. No, what I saw was someone actually using their 3DS camera to take pictures of the puzzles that were in the newspaper.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a very odd situation. This happened a week ago. I'm like, have you not got a phone to do that with? No, a 3DS.
Smartphones exist.
Yeah, I mean, I know people are digging out their 3DSs and using their cameras for things lately. I mean, I think when I was at a gig a while back, someone was taking pictures with their 3DS with the camera.
I think I remember seeing something about that. Maybe not particularly, your story, but I'm pretty sure I saw somebody online, like at a concert,
Yeah.
like using the 3DS to record it. It's like, dude, just watch the concert.
Yeah,
No, but you get that at concerts all the time.
Yeah, I think I saw that first before I saw someone at an actual gig actually using one. It's just one of those things that seems to have caught on again for whatever reason.
It's a little bit weird, but hey. I've also got another quote here for you, which I think is prevalent.
Go on.
A video game is interesting when you can have fun simply watching someone play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. I think one of the things that makes Street Fighter, for example, very, very, fun is that, people can, especially like back in the day when you're at arcades and you got two people, like really, really going at it, fighting each other. And then you've got this huge crowd of people behind them watching, thinking, oh, this is like really, really interesting. Because, if you can enjoy yourself watching somebody else play, it means you're doing something right. It'll bring that person into the game as well and say, do you know what? I think I want to play this myself.
Yeah, it's the same thing now, essentially, is what is the case with like Twitch streaming, which is why it's probably taken off in the way that it has.
Yeah, I was about to sort of say that. There's essentially with Twitch streaming, it's just basically that, but internet form rather than watching someone in person, as you say, playing on an arcade machine.
Yeah. Oh, and I suppose obviously with like Twitch streaming, it's a bit more interactive as well, because a lot of times people, are commentating as well, or they're reading out the comments whilst they're playing the game. So obviously, like yourselves or Kylie, who does a lot of the streaming herself on her channel, so obviously engaging with the people that are talking to her about the game as well. And I think it is evolved. A lot of these things have evolved over time, whereas before, like if you were playing a game like in the day of like playing Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat on the arcades, and it's like, oh, how do you do that? Don't do that, do something else. And say, shut up, I'm playing.
No, but it would always be the case that back in those days is that you would watch the people play it, and then once they come off, you're like, oh my god, how did you do that? And then you get someone telling you like an input code or something. It was like, how'd you do the fatality on Mortal Kombat 2, like for Liu Kang? It's like, well, you do this, and like, and then it starts spreading around an arcade like wildfire, and you see everyone doing it then. But that's how it was back in the day, especially with fighting games, is that people would just share their tech. But now you can just go on to YouTube and just see people putting combo videos up, tutorials, explainers, and all that sort of thing. So it's essentially just the digital version of going to an arcade and getting the input from someone.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose because a lot of these games aren't available in arcades anymore. Everybody has them at home. Whereas, back in the day, arcades were a very, very big thing because maybe only one kid in the entire neighborhood actually had a game console. Whereas most of the time, you went to the arcades, you went out to go hide in a room all day to play video games in the arcades.
Yeah.
Whereas now everyone has either a PS5 or a Nintendo Switch 2 or Nintendo Switch or Xbox or, Steam, and everyone plays at home, and very rarely they go out, or they're watching Twitch streams whilst playing the game
Yeah.
at home as well. And it's like, okay, I'll watch a tutorial or walkthrough to take me through this difficult part of the game, and then you end up watching the stream and not even paying attention to the game you're playing anymore.
Yeah.
Swings and roundabouts. Swings and roundabouts.
Mike, any
So,
quotes that you want to throw in?
I mean, I'm looking. There are so many. I think I'm actually going to go for some of these words of wisdom. I mean, you've already said that about a video game is interesting when you can have fun simply watching somebody else play. I mean, he has done so much for the community and for the industry as well. A game doesn't need to be like an encyclopedia. As long as you have a good idea and the right angle, it can be closer to a magazine or comic. When putting a game together, it's fundamentally about, if I do this, I can't do that. And since these two things have that kind of relationship, let's make something interesting when combined. Today's games tend not to revolve around one interesting feature, but complicated combinations. This is what makes them unsatisfying. That's what happens when the design is based on the idea of more, more, more. In a way, I can see that, because a lot of games are trying to be complicated now, whereas, generally the most fun that you have is when something is quite simple. And then, like, when you go off book or off topic. So, like, if you're playing a game that's very, very linear, you think, okay, well, this is an experience. But sometimes the most fun you have with a game is when you just mess about trying different things.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily breaking the game, but, a lot of, like, I've spoken to a number of people at, like, events and things, like, people that have come to bring their games, their independent games, left field collection, stuff like that. And it's like, when interviewing people, and it says, what's the best kind of feedback you get from these, people playing games and, their responses. And it's like, I like seeing people, playing the games and doing things that I never even imagined doing. Because obviously from a game developer's perspective, it's like, I want the player to jump from here, and they've got to jump to here, and they've got to jump to here. And then, they've got to fight this bad guy. And it's like a very, very linear approach. And then you'll get somebody coming to play, and then all of a sudden they're like, go and do something completely else and absolutely, swamp the puzzle or whatever that was in front of them. And like the developer thinks, hang on a second, that's actually a pretty good idea. How about, I try and, implement that more into the game. And so, sometimes, you get these like perspectives from things, and it's like something that you completely would not imagine. And somebody comes along with this, and just like ad hoc idea, and then put it into motion and think, hey, actually, that's pretty cool. I'd never even thought about that. And I'm the guy who's developing the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just flicking back through some of his other words, and after you say now, there's a bit. I think it's in part 3. I'm looking at it where it says here, when I'm really hooked on something, as long as I can figure out what got me hooked, I can take that process and apply it elsewhere as a way of drumming up interest.
Yeah, 100%.
And you can sort of see that with and again, I sort of near enough think this sort of along similar lines. Certain games will hook me, and I'll look and thinking, why has this hooked me? And then I'll go and find similar things.
Yeah, it's like the concept of playing like a Metroidvania or something. Like, why has this game hooked me? And then you go and play other Metroidvanias. Like, oh, because it actually has something unique to each one, even though it's the same genre.
Yeah. But then sort of he see it as like, well, if it's hooked me, then there's a good chance it's going to hook other people. So he'll use his experience to then put into ways that will drum up interest in others, and then just create that domino effect.
Yeah.
So
it's a good. There's so many really good quotes that he has in those little words of wisdom sections, but it's obviously like all the other stuff around the book as well that is all very, very interesting. And obviously, like towards the end of the book is where you start to get like some of the words from a couple of his closer friends within Nintendo. After his passing, and the ones from Shigetori Itoi, who's the creator and developer of Earthbound. Like I think there's one section where he says, even sick, Iwata was himself. So this is just a section from it. He said, we had the chance to talk a lot about him getting sick. when he was diagnosed, I happened to be sitting in Kyoto for a short while. That day, I had plans to go out and eat with someone else. Iwata asked me, "Is it okay if I tag along?" Sorry, said this was out of character for him, since he was usually reserved. He almost never asked that kind of thing. My plans were with a friend who was basically family, so I urged him to join us. But once we were together, Iwata didn't say a word about his diagnosis. It must have been hard to broach the subject when we were just having a good time. Later on, after my daughter got engaged, we were in Kyoto for a dinner and he asked me again, "Can we meet up?" That's when he finally told me he was sick. He couldn't call or text me about it. Some things need to be said face to face.
Yes.
It just shows the sort of person that he was. Like, it's a similar thing to what I said about Masao Sakurai, because obviously Kyoto, and I can't remember where Hao was, or not Hao, sorry, Sora Inc. is basically established, but Iwata would regularly fly out to go and see him, because not only were they partners, you know, they worked together at HAL Labs for many number of years. They were friends, like, and
They were friends.
you know, it was the same with Shigeru Miyamoto. It was the same with Reggie Fils-Aimé. You know, the executives at these companies all came up together at a very interesting time in Nintendo's development, but they all remained really close and really good friends. And whilst Itoi wasn't himself an executive at the company, he was a very integral part of Nintendo's history, and Iwata saw that, but he still didn't treat him as like, oh, he's just a colleague. No, he was a friend, and he pretty much, like, from what you can gather, and obviously I don't know him personally or didn't know him personally, is that he just had a very friendly approach to life generally. That he made friends everywhere he went.
I mean, there is a saying, it's not in this book, but there is a saying, is to judge a man not by how he treats his equal, but how he treats his inferior. And, you know, Satoru Iwata treated everybody as he would like to have been treated himself.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether it was, you know, the guy who's the president of Sony at the time, or whether it was the guy that brings him coffee in the morning. He always had time, and he always treated people with respect at all levels, and everybody felt valued because of that. I mean, and obviously, you know, with like developing the games and stuff like that, and you want to keep your staff happy, you want to keep the people happy, because they will create good quality stuff. I mean, you don't want to go to a restaurant and you know, knock off the waiter who's going to be bringing your coffee, and you think, it's a bit frothier today than usual, and you know why. So you always want to keep people on side, don't you?
Yeah,
but you know, this was not so much that case. It's not like I want to keep them on side so they produce good stuff and they don't spit in my coffee. I want them to be happy because I genuinely want them to be happy and happy working at the company.
Yeah.
As we finish up on this, because obviously we don't want to leave this, you know, running too long for people who are actually watching and listening, I want to say one of these other words of wisdom is, I always want to find a way to be involved in every case. I'd rather be involved than be a bystander, whether that means helping someone in need or making someone smile or making customers happy. I want to be involved, contributing to the solution. I cringe at the thought of acknowledging a chance to be involved by staying out of it. Sorry. Telling myself, I know if I chipped in, things would get better, that I would make a positive contribution, but I don't think it's worth the efforts. That's not the way I've lived my life. Refusing to turn down these chances have been difficult at times, but it's also led me to all kinds of interesting things. My thought is that I want to live with no regrets and use all the energy I have.
It's a very typical way that he did things. It's very much an all or nothing mentality, which is, you know, if you're running a company, then you need to be involved in every aspect of it. And some people are quite happy to sit there and just take their paycheck, check in on something every now and again, deal with their shareholders, and that is it. No, he dealt with all the shareholders, he dealt with the developers, he dealt with the customer base, which is why we have Nintendo Directs, because he was talking directly to the customer, you know, and the shareholders. But he was also obviously talking to the developers, the people within, the company that were developing the game. Like you said, even the postman, every part and every cog of that company was important. Whether it was the tea lady or the coffee person or the person who brings in the pastries in the morning. Well, it doesn't matter who they were. They are important because everything has a knock-on effect on everybody else.
Yeah.
I wish more executives were like this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see some executives do it and they're very, very superficial. So, it's like, oh,
Spencer.
yay, hey. I mean, yeah, look at me shaking hands with this employee. Yeah, we're a great, big, happy family here. And it's like the week after, in fact.
Yeah, Phil
No.
Spencer.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to talk about him by using that name. It is pill dispenser. You know this.
I forgot. Yes, the pill dispenser.
Pill dispenser. Yeah. Iwata was a very, very deeply profound person. Everything was sincere. Everything was professional, but he had this warmness to him as well. And generally, connected and resonated with every person who knew him, and even those that didn't. I mean, let's face it, we're talking about this guy with very, very high regard and a deep, profound respect for this person. I've never met him. I don't know if you guys have ever had the opportunity or
No,
the chance
wish I
to meet
did.
him. Yeah, he's one of those people that you just want to go up to and just shake his hand, and even if you didn't say anything remotely profound or whatever, and just say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hell
It's
yeah.
people like him that gave me an interest in the gaming industry, not just playing games and having fun, but learning about all aspects of the gaming industry, and gave me hope that they will continue to create great games and great experiences for the player. And I feel like we're in a time, and this is obviously something Pete and I are going to be bringing up in another episode about the current state of the gaming industry and the mess that it is at the moment.
I can tease that essentially right now by asking this question, not just one that doesn't necessarily need to be answered by yourselves, but one that can lead into it. Has the gaming industry seriously been the same since he passed?
Interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how to respond to that one.
And I think that on that bombshell, this is where we should end the episode,
Yeah.
because that is a very, very good talking point, and I think we should bring that up at another time.
100%, but also let's open it up to the people in the comments. Just has it really been the same since he passed? Has it improved? Has it got worse? Who knows? You might have opinions that one way or another, and we'd love to hear them.
In fact, yes, please do comment. Actually, now I'm going to talk to those who are watching and listening, because obviously my eyes have been looking elsewhere and whatnot. So directly at the camera now to you guys at home who are watching this video, or maybe you're at work. Do leave your comments, because we might even bring them up in a future video where I and Pete will be talking about the current state of affairs in the video game industry, and we would like your thoughts so we can bring them to everyone's attention in the next video. So thank you very much, everyone at home, for watching. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Rich, for coming along. I'm now going to give you a chance to plug your stuff. Where can people find you? Rich, we're going to start with you this time. Floor is yours.
Okay. Well, you can find me on Twitter or X. You can find me as We Love Game Music, or under my own tag, Rich Stokesy, which is where I tend to post more of my Nintendo related stuff. And for the games music side of things, I'm also on Blue Sky and Instagram under the same handle. And also, because I'm a member of the Nintendo Players groups, if you are thinking, what are these groups of awesome people? How can I get involved? Where's my nearest one? Just look up Nintendo Players UK online, and you should find a website which will sort of link you to your nearest group. It is mainly UK based, but for those of you listening, maybe in another country, there are other groups elsewhere as well. I know there's definitely one in Paris, and I think there's a couple in the US as well, like New York and Boston. So So yeah, but if you're primarily UK based listeners, then yeah, just go onto the Nintendo Players UK website and they'll list all the local groups that you can go and check out.
Excellent, thank you. And Pete, over to you. Plug your stuff.
You can find me usually on the Rapid Reviews Radio podcast with Kylie Wild, a previous guest on the Game and Chat podcast, where we discuss the video game industry in exhaustive detail, let's say, where we cover news items, interviews with developers, or whether or not, people within the video game industry. Not as much as we'd like to, but we still do. You can also find me on another podcast called the Never Watchers, as well as being a guest contributor to the Mike Tendo 64 channel from time to time as well. So, please keep an eye out for all those stuff. You know, Rapid Reviews Radio is on Spotify and YouTube, and Never Watches is on Spotify and other podcast players. And Mike Tendo 64. Well, if you're watching this channel and this video or this podcast, you know exactly where it is. So keep it tuned to that.
Thank you, buddy. You are a legend as always. And obviously, to everybody at home, you know, you'll find us here at the Mike Tendo 64 YouTube channel. We also have our website, www.miketendo64.com. We're also on the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, and Facebook we use as well, and Blue Sky. So thank you ever so much for joining us. And until next time, keep on gaming.